Hey people, today I want to talk to you about voice types and vocal Fach, or rather, I don't want to, but I'm afraid I have to, because a lot of people have asked me, what voice type am I? I cannot hit the high tenor notes, but I also cannot hit the low baritone notes. Am I a baritenor, or am I nothing? What am I? uh, or stuff like, I've been told in high school choir that I'm a soprano, but I've also been told that sopranos shouldn't belt. That's more of a mezzo and alto thing. Can I belt? You say on your website that everyone can sing everything they want. So, there's this idea that if you have a low speaking voice, your high notes are going to be harder, and if you have a high speaking voice, they're going to be easier. So far, so trivial. What is a speaking voice? That's a question I almost never hear, even though it's a very good question. Right now, I'm speaking to you in English, which is not my native language. If I spoke to you in German, it would sound like this. I'm going to speak a German sentence. Wenn ich auf Deutsch rede, dann habe ich noch weniger Twang als im Englischen. Now, I'm going to switch back to English, and maybe you hear a slight difference in the sound of my voice. My German is less twangy, almost soft and breathy at times. Not because I'm trying to express warmth, but just because that's what German sounds like.
Liebe Mitbürgerinnen und liebe Mitbürger.
Liebe Mitbürgerinnen und liebe Mitbürger.
Even if we say, okay, the amount of twang varies, but a speaking voice is something that happens at a low range. Well, is this not my speaking voice anymore? Well, you could say it's my yelling voice. I raised my voice, quite literally. But, you know, some people talk like that. Some people are constantly in that kind of state of... And some people are just more chill, so they talk much lower. And some people even talk like that. They don't even use their chest voice, but their pulse register to speak. So now, that was all my voice. That was all the same anatomy. What's my speech range? I'm afraid we have to do this a bit differently. Let's settle for one voice quality. Let's just pick the one I'm speaking in right now. So, moderate amount of twang, moderate intensity, kind of a small talk volume and range. And now I'm gonna go down in pitch, and as soon as we notice the quality changes, the quality changed, it got a bit softer, I lost the twang. Let's do it again. Okay, now I didn't get softer, but I got a bit harsher. And I have the E2 in that kind of way, but not in the same quality. So now, as soon as we notice a change like this, we're gonna stop. Okay, I think I can hit that G2 in the same way that my E3 sounds. So let's say G2 is my lowest note. Again, the voice quality I decided for is completely arbitrary, but just to make a point, now let's say that G2 is the bottom of my tessitura, of my usable, reliable range. Now, how would that affect my high notes? Well, let's just try the same experiment again. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, my voice quality changed somewhere. When exactly did that happen? I'm gonna do it more slowly again to determine where exactly my passaggio is. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, maybe here, maybe here, maybe in between. But that's not even the tenor passaggio. Oh, maybe I'm not using enough chest voice, because I've read that male classical voices sing in chest voice. Well, until they sing in their head voice, which is totally different from falsetto. It's so confusing, but I got this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, now I stayed in chest voice, and it still didn't really sound the same. Also, I opened my mouth and I raised my volume. Am I even allowed to do that? I'm making fun a bit of that topic. If we want to understand voice type and vocal Fach, again, we have to understand where it comes from. In a classical context, none of these sounds are loud enough. Yes, we literally need more volume, not some magical resonance that allows us to sing louder without raising the volume. It doesn't work like that. If we have what some people call resonance, we have a high volume. And the resonance is a result of that, not the other way around. And also, a bit more practically, we need twang. You don't have to call it that if you prefer narrowing of the throat. We can also call it that, but we need that. Yeah, to get a decent volume. That's not even the loudest I can go. That was very relaxed. It's just that I changed my shape. It's not really my speaking voice anymore. Well, maybe if I spoke like this, then yeah. You would say that this is my natural sound, but it's not about that. All of that is natural. None of it is supernatural. All of this is my real voice. It's not fake. It's not AI generated. It might feel not authentic, not like the real me. Well, what's the real me? There's different situations where I act differently depending on what the context is. And the context of classical singing is trying to be heard by a lot of people over at least a piano, or in most cases even an orchestra. In some cases even a big orchestra that is allowed to play loudly. So now, if instead of trying to determine voice type by the speaking range or some arbitrary voice quality, we just check what's the lowest note a person can comfortably produce a high volume at. Ideally with a lot of ring and still some darkness, chiaroscuro, because for whatever reason that's the classical sound ideal. Then we might get a bit closer to the answer of this question. Namely, what's the repertoire I should sing? Note that I'm only talking about classical repertoire sung in a classical style. We're not talking about pop, rock, any other style yet. So if you're like me and that one's easier than this one, then a lot of people are going to tell you that you're a tenor. Now, a tenor is also supposed to sing this note, not in this way, but ideally at least a similar quality. It's not possible to keep it exactly the same, but maybe it shouldn't sound much brighter suddenly. So, yeah, if that happens, am I not a tenor? No, I'm just an untrained tenor. Because tenor is not an essentialist biological category, it's a job. And now all of those subcategories of the tenor voice type that you can find on the internet, as well as of course other vocal fachs outside of tenor singing too, those are basically all just ways of specializing within your profession. You have roughly the same job to do, roughly the same ranges to sing in, sometimes with more of a focus on high notes, ease, agility, sometimes with more of a focus on a strong middle range. But that's just because different music calls for different sounds and strengths. Wagner has to be sung differently from Puccini and Mozart and Bach. It's just specialization. And specialization is not biologically predetermined. Specializing is getting good at something. And how do you get good at something? By practicing, investing the time and energy, and you decide what you want to get good at. That doesn't mean everything is going to be equally easy to achieve for you, but how do you find out where exactly your biological limit is if you don't try? Don't believe me? Here's what I tried. Okay, I'm going to compare the same arpeggio in 3 different styles that roughly correspond to 3 different tenor fachs. I'm going to start at C4 and go up to C5, as well as back down. The first fach would be light lyric or leggero tenor singing. Yeah. So as you can see, the highest note is also the loudest note. Note that I'm not doing this thing where all notes are roughly the same volume. Even though some people might believe this is more beautiful or more round sounding, it is not ringy or in any other way loud enough for the operatic stage. The second Fach is full lyric tenor singing. Ja! As you see, this one is much louder than the light lyric tenor singing already, but it still wants to maintain a bit of the beauty and ease. It's just that now we don't spend as much time up there anymore, so we can put all of the power that is available to us within the constraint of prioritizing beauty and ease into that C5. Now, with the third Fach, which is lyric dramatic or spinto singing, we have to push for a bit more volume. This is what spinto means. If we can maintain some of the beauty of the lyric singing, that's ideal. But if we don't have the volume, then we have no business even trying spinto repertoire. So now let's try a bit of spinto. And as you see, I should have calibrated my microphone a bit differently because this one is just too loud. If we compare the whole thing, I think you can see a pretty clear picture. This is the peak of the leggero tenor singing. This is the peak of the full lyric tenor singing, and the peak of spinto is beyond what my microphone can record without clipping. Now, what did I do differently between those three versions, except for, of course, effort level? Well, I varied the amount of twang between lots of twang for my leggero singing and a shitload of twang for my spinto tenor singing. There is no such thing as little or no twang in normal operatic tenor singing. I also varied my larynx position, even though it's pretty hard to determine what exactly a neutral larynx is, let alone at C5, because it's always relative to other parts of the body, higher than, lower than. And if I change my mouth shape, yes, this has an influence on my larynx, but now what do we compare the larynx position to? If I change my posture, this has an influence on my larynx position, but you get the point, right? So this leads us to the next part, which is mouth shape. For the leggero tenor singing, I try to keep it relatively small. It might vertically open a bit for the high note, depending on the vowel. Yeah, maybe half a centimeter from my A vowel. Whereas for the full lyric tenor singing, yeah, it also opened a bit horizontally. And for the spinto tenor singing, my whole posture changed a lot because I used a bit more compression, stiff belly muscles, which likes to have a more open chest and a slightly upward tilt of the head. Similar to grandpa voice that we use in hypercompressed screaming. We all have that kind of neck extension. No matter what style we sing, right? If we use that amount of compression. So if I do this is actually what my spinto approach looks like. Not because those are stupid compensational mechanisms, but because those are strategies that make it easier. Some methods call this anchoring, but it's not actually that complicated. You go for a certain sound, and then you try to find the constellation of shapes, postures, embouchures, whatever you want to call it, that work well together, that are easy, efficient, right? So, anything else? There might be a bit of nasalization in the leggero tenor sound. That doesn't mean you have to nasalize it. That doesn't mean you cannot nasalize any of the others. But it's easier to have a floaty, mixy kind of approach to the high range if the air is coming out 2 or actually 3 holes. A lot of people will tell you it's wrong. There's no such thing as right and wrong. And this is the overall thing I want to kind of convey today. I don't know if you found my tenor demonstrations convincing. I'm certainly no professional operatic tenor, but maybe I could still showcase that you're not born with only one Fach. You're born with the freedom to decide which Fach you want to be. And it doesn't even have to be only one. With me, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this for the same reason that I'm practicing funny beatboxing techniques, right? I'm distributing my time and energy equally to all the Fachs I want to learn. Maybe tomorrow I want to learn countertenor singing. Well, actually, in the past I have trained that. Maybe I want to become a soprano. Who says that males cannot be sopranos, right? My point is, don't let anyone tell you what style of singing or even repertoire to stick to. Not even me, not even other super smart voice teachers. All that voice teachers and other singers can give you is their more or less informed opinion. I pride myself in saying that I am well informed because I'm a nerd about this, but even then, it's not the truth. It's not some kind of law, not the laws of nature, not God's will. You decide how you want to sing.